I've always been a creature of habit. Every evening after work, I take the same route home, stop at the same cafe for a quick coffee, and then walk the last few blocks to my apartment. It's a routine that's become second nature, providing a sense of familiarity and comfort in my otherwise hectic life. However, one particular evening, my predictable routine almost became my undoing. It was a crisp autumn evening, and the sun was setting, casting long shadows on the pavement. I had just left the cafe with my usual order, a latte with an extra shot of espresso, and started my walk home. The streets were relatively quiet, with only a few people milling about. I popped in my earbuds and let the music drown out the world as I often did, but something felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but there was an unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach. About halfway home, I noticed a white van parked on the side of the road. It wasn't unusual to see vans in the area, but this one stood out. The windows were tinted darker than usual, and there were no company logos or markings. As I walked past it, I felt a prickle of unease. I quickened my pace, telling myself I was being paranoid. As I continued down the street, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced over my shoulder and saw a man walking behind me, a few paces back. He was average in every way. Average height, average build, wearing a hoodie and jeans. He could have been anyone, but the way he kept pace with me, always maintaining the same distance, sent chills down my spine. I told myself it was just a coincidence, that he was probably just another pedestrian heading home. But as I turned the corner onto my street, he turned too. I could feel my heart start to race. I decided to test my theory. I crossed the street abruptly, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw him do the same. At this point, I knew something was wrong. I reached into my pocket and clutched my phone, ready to dial 911 if necessary. I debated whether to head straight home or find a more public place where I could lose him. My apartment was only a few blocks away, but the streets were eerily empty. I decided to duck into a small grocery store nearby, hoping to lose him in the aisles. I entered the store, the bell above the door chiming softly. I made my way through the aisles, trying to keep my breathing steady. I glanced behind me and saw the man standing just outside the door, looking in. He didn't enter, but he didn't leave either. He was waiting. I felt a surge of panic. I approached the cashier, a young woman who looked up from her magazine as I approached. "Excuse me, I think someone's following me," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. She looked past me towards the entrance and nodded. "Stay here," she said. She picked up the phone behind the counter and called the police. I stayed in the store, my heart pounding, until the police arrived. They spoke with the cashier and then with me. When they went outside to look for the man, he was gone. They assured me they would patrol the area, but without more information, there wasn't much they could do. I waited a while longer before leaving the store, my nerves on edge. I decided to take a different route home, sticking to well-lit, busier streets. When I finally reached my apartment, I double-checked all the locks and windows, my mind replaying the events of the evening over and over. The next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I changed up my routine, taking different routes to and from work, but the sense of unease remained. I started noticing the white van more frequently, parked in different spots around my neighborhood. I reported it to the police, but they didn't seem overly concerned. They suggested it was probably just someone doing their job or visiting someone in the area. One evening, a week after the initial encounter, I was coming home late from a friend's house. The streets were dark and empty, and as I rounded the corner to my building, I saw the white van parked directly across from my apartment. My blood ran cold. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking, and hurried inside, locking the door behind me. I tried to convince myself that it was a coincidence, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I decided to take action. I installed security cameras around my apartment, giving me some peace of mind. I also started carrying a small canister of pepper spray in my bag, just in case. For a while, things seemed to return to normal. The van disappeared, and I didn't see the man again. I began to relax, thinking maybe he had given up or moved on. But one night, as I was reviewing the footage from my security cameras, I I saw something that made my blood run cold. There, on the grainy screen, was the man. He was standing across the street, partially hidden by the shadows. He was just watching my building, unmoving. My heart pounded as I realized he had never really gone away. He was still out there, watching, waiting. I called the police again, showing them the footage. They took it more seriously this time, increasing patrols in my neighborhood and advising me to stay vigilant. They suggested I stay with a friend or family member for a few days, but I didn't want to leave my home. I felt like running would only give him more power over me. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and paranoia. I kept my curtains drawn, rarely ventured outside, and constantly checked the security footage. I barely slept, my mind racing with fear and what-ifs. Then, one evening, it happened. I was sitting in my living room, trying to distract myself with a movie, when I heard a noise outside my window. I froze, my heart pounding. The noise came again, a faint scraping sound. I crept towards the window, careful not to make any noise, and peeked through the curtains. There he was, standing just outside my window, trying to pry it open. I backed away slowly, my mind racing. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the buttons. The operator answered, and I whispered, "Someone is trying to break into my apartment. Please send help." She assured me that officers were on their way and instructed me to find a safe place to hide. I grabbed my pepper spray and locked myself in the bathroom, praying the police would arrive in time. I could hear him outside, the sound of the window being forced open. My heart pounded in my ears as I crouched in the corner, clutching the pepper spray like a lifeline. Minutes felt like hours as I waited, my mind filled with terrifying images of what he might do if he got in. Finally, I heard the sound of sirens approaching. The noise outside my window stopped abruptly, and I heard footsteps running away. The police arrived moments later, banging on my door and calling out to me. I unlocked the bathroom door and let them in, tears streaming down my face. They searched the area but found no sign of him. They assured me they would do everything they could to catch him, but I couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability. My home, my sanctuary, had been violated, and I no longer felt safe. The police increased patrols in my neighborhood, and I took additional precautions, installing more security measures and even considering moving to a different apartment. But the fear never really went away. I knew that he was still out there somewhere, and the thought haunted me. Months passed, and the incidents slowly faded into the background of my life. I tried to move on, to regain some semblance of normalcy, but the experience had changed me. I was more cautious, more aware of my surroundings, and always on edge. One day, as I was walking home from work, I noticed a white van parked down the street. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a familiar prickle of fear. I quickened my pace, glancing around nervously. But as I approached, I saw that it was just a delivery van, the driver unloading packages. I breathed a sigh of relief, but the experience served as a reminder that the fear would always be with me. I had come close to being taken, to having my life forever changed by a stranger's twisted obsession. And while I had managed to escape, the psychological scars remained, a constant reminder of the danger that lurks just beneath the surface of everyday life.